Okay. Well, this is a major technical production, so as you can see, I am getting everything ready because I have these really expensive cameras and everything. Not really, they're just my phones, but I know you already knew that. So, hi, hey, hello. Hi, this is Neil Palache, women's money coach, coming to you from Westlake Village, California, where it is also about 100 degrees, which seems to be fairly common out here in Southern Cal today, from what I understand, from what I am reading on Facebook and other places. So I hope that everybody is staying cool, drinking plenty of water, and staying hydrated. You do not want it to end up in the hospital, as they say. So Neil Palache, Women's Money Coach with a Wealth Creator Company for Women, and I am here today to quickly talk to you about divorce financial tips. Now, first of all, let me say that I hope that those of you who are watching either are not going through a divorce and are just interested in the tips. If you are going through a divorce, or if you're thinking about going through a divorce, I hope that everything works out well, and do your very best to stay married if you can. So, as a person who's been married for almost 30 years, I would recommend it. But if you have to get divorced, I get it. I speak to people all the time, and that's just the way it goes, and it's a tough road to hoe. So, what you want to make sure is that you're doing certain things that are beneficial, as it were, beneficial as it can be in terms of making sure that you are well prepared. For instance, you want to make sure that you make a copy of all your records. We could consider this kind of a top 10, if you like. Copy your records. You just want to make sure, and unfortunately, men and or women, when they get into these situations, get a little bit nasty sometimes, and so you want to make sure that you have all of your records copied. So you've got things like tax returns and investment statements and pay stubs and life insurance policies and all this other stuff. Make sure that you have all of the information that you need so that you know what exactly it is that you're going to be talking about when you go into your meetings. Number two, obtain copies of your credit reports, credit applications, credit reports, all of that good stuff. You want to make sure that your credit is known, whether it's in good shape or whether it's not in good shape. What you want to make sure is that you know what your situation is. If you've got applications that you've made for mortgages or credit cards and so forth, you want to have copies of that. You can go on to Credit Karma, KARMA.com, and you can get your credit reports. You can get your credit scores. You can do all that for free. I'm going back and forth here like a tennis match between my two phones because I am broadcasting both on Periscope and Facebook Live at the same time because I am just so technically advanced. Not really, but nevertheless, I have two phones. So obtain the information necessary for you to understand your credit situation and be well educated. So credit is very important. While you're doing that, number three is to make sure that you are safe from an identity perspective. Unfortunately, in this day and age, believe it or not, we have to be concerned about whether or not people steal our identities. And although this is kind of commingled a little bit with the credit issue, there are actually separate issues associated with identity. And you want to make sure that you have a good handle on that. Make sure that your information is accurate. So yeah, you've got the credit reports and you've got the credit scores, But you want to make sure that everything is accurate. You may look at the credit report and, well, wait a minute, what is this line item? What is this credit card? What is this something, account on here? It shouldn't be here. This is not me. This is not mine. They may have your names wrong. They may have your addresses wrong, and so on and so forth. So make sure that you understand exactly what you have there. Now, you are going to have, most likely, marital debt. You are going to have credit cards. This is number 4. You're going to have credit cards. You're going to have mortgages, potentially. You are going to have other kinds of debt, maybe a business loan. So you want to look at what it is that you both have. Now, it's even possible that you may have debt that you applied for separately, but the marital debt is obviously very important. You both hopefully signed for it. There's certainly been situations where I have seen that signatures are not real, that there is debt out there and one has signed for the other. And so you've got to know what's going on. The marital debt is very, very important, because although everybody talks about the marital assets and the fact that you have to split those marital assets, guess what, folks? You also have to split the marital debt. Everything has to be looked at and balanced with the assets against the debt to make sure that everybody in that situation is treated equally. So it doesn't always work out that way, does it? But that's how it's supposed to be. Everybody's supposed to get half the assets. Everybody's supposed to get half the debt. And sometimes somebody decides they'll do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But it's supposed to work out that way in total, not necessarily half of each of everything. But in total, it's supposed to work out to be 50-50. I'm sure there's people out there right now that are saying, yeah, right, well, it didn't work out that way in my case. And I get it. And that does happen, so you've got to be careful. Joint lines of credit, you may want to consider, this is number 5, you may want to consider canceling joint lines of credit. Now, sometimes they're difficult to cancel if there's only one of you wanting to cancel them, but you may want to cancel the joint lines of credit. Sometimes these things can affect you negatively. Unfortunately, you can't always do that. In other words, if one person has created the debt, you want to see what you can do about getting out from under that if you're the person that didn't create the debt. Now, depending on, state to state, what you can do and how you can do it obviously differ. And I want to make sure that anything that I'm telling you here is checked on with an attorney that specializes in this area of the law, because I'm not a lawyer and it is complex. Sometimes there are things that you are prohibited from doing. So I want to make sure that you are being real clear about what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. And a lawyer usually is the best person to tell you how that works. Now, one of the things that happens is your Social Security, and this is number 6, Social Security can be an important piece of the equation. I was working on a case, and it was an important piece of the equation, and you got to make sure you understand how that works. Social Security is something that will differ depending on how long you've been married. Usually it's at the 10-year mark that makes a difference, because then you get half of the amount of your spouse's benefit, or 100% of your accrued benefit. So there are people out there, and I certainly have people that I know, if you need referrals, that can help you with the issues surrounding Social Security and how that works. If you're approaching that age, it may not be a crucial issue if you're younger when you're getting divorced, but if you are on the older side when you're getting divorced, that might be something that you want to know about, because it'll be potentially a substantial piece of your overall income. It's not insignificant. It's not insignificant. It could be several hundred. It can be $1,000, $2,000. So a month. So you want to make sure that that you understand exactly what you're getting or could be getting in Social Security. And there we have my phone falling down, and that's always a good thing right in the middle of a presentation. So, and you handle it professionally, just like I did, and make fun of it, because, you know, that's the way to do it, I think. Hi, Craig. I got Neil and Roy and Stephanie, Donetta, Craig. Oh, there's all these people watching. Hi, guys. It's great. Thank you. Thank you for coming online. Then you get into the alimony itself and the alimony deductibility. You've got usually now most people don't even use alimony anymore, but spousal support and child support. And you've got to make sure you understand the tax issues surrounding those two income streams, because alimony, or spousal support as they now call it, is deductible to the person who's giving it, and it is taxable to the person who is receiving it, whereas child support is not taxable to the person who's receiving it. So there are differences in terms of how the different pieces of income are treated for tax purposes, and you've got to make sure that those are clearly understood in your mind, so that when you're looking at how you're going to live, where you're going to live, and what you're going to do, and how you're going to file your taxes and so forth, you clearly understand before you go in what the tax ramifications are. The next important one, number 8, is to ensure that your income will continue. So if you are the recipient of spousal support, what do you do if your ex is disabled or dies, if the person who's paying you is disabled or dies? Insurance pretty much is the only way to guarantee, although if there are a large amount of assets somewhere, I guess you could use an asset to secure that income, but primarily what you're going to do is use insurance to secure that income. So life insurance, obviously, if you're going to insure for one's death, as it were, make sure that you've got a sufficient amount of life insurance. If somebody's receiving $5,000 a month, that's $60,000 a year for 10 years. That's $600,000. Doesn't necessarily mean that you need $600,000 worth of insurance, but if you want to fully insure it, that would be what you would be looking at. Or if you want a larger amount of insurance so that the benefit that you would receive would be only derived from the interest that would come from that ultimate death benefit, that would be another way of doing it. Who's going to pay for that insurance is something that you can make a determination about as you're negotiating your settlements and your asset splits. But it's certainly very, very important. And disability insurance is something that is needed, but it can be very, very expensive, and in some cases it's difficult to buy. If you're 60 years old or older, or if the person who's paying the spousal support is 60 or older, it's very difficult to get disability insurance. You may have to go to places like Lloyd's of London, and that kind of stuff, because often when you're over 60, you can't get disability insurance from regular insurance sources. Number 9, and we're getting to the end here. Number 9, dividing the marital stuff. Now, look, when you get into the house and the cars and the bank accounts, 401k plans, stock accounts, and so forth, all those are pretty much going to be split 50-50 in most states. Although, again, I've said this before during this presentation, please talk to a lawyer that specializes in this area. I'm sure there's 50 states, so there might well be 50 different ways to do this. But typically, your assets are going to get split 50-50. You're not going to go into court and talk, argue about, who gets the frying pan. Hopefully you're not. But you're going to have a pretty important and serious discussion about, how the house is going to get split and those big bank accounts with all your money in it. So, and by the way, look, you want to avoid court if you can. Avoid court at all costs if you can. Unfortunately, sometimes arguments happen and the judge is the only person that can kind of figure it all out for you, or at least make the final decisions and push you to the point of getting it all settled. But if you can get it all settled by using your lawyer, a mediator, somebody, or yourself, you could do it yourself. As I know some people that have done that. It's a difficult thing to do, especially when you've got a lot of assets. But you want to stay out of court if you can, because it's very, very bloody expensive. And you're going to spend all your money going to court, so don't do that. Give it to... or you can give it to me. Alternatively, you could split it with each other and give it to your kids and so on and so forth. And then last but not least, your beneficiary information on stuff. You've got 401ks and you've got life insurance and you've got retitling of assets and all that kind of stuff. You've got to make sure that everything's in the right person's name. Life insurance policies with your spouse's name on it, who's no longer your spouse unless it's being used to protect that income, is probably not the right beneficiary designation. Maybe you want it to be your kids, or you want it to be your mom, or whatever, but you don't necessarily want it to be your spouse anymore, because she or he ain't your spouse no more. So you want to get those things changed with houses and bank accounts and all that. You've got to get the titles changed. Usually all of that's done without any tax consequences, and the title companies and so forth are used to doing that. But also your lawyer can help you with that, or when you go to your estate planning lawyer to do your wills and trusts and all that, they can help you with that. It's all doable. It's just a bloody lot to remember, isn't it? So you want to make sure that you've got people around you that are kind of checking everything off the list and making sure that all those things are getting done. So there you go. You've got 10, and there's way, way more than that, but there's the top 10, and I appreciate you all listening. Thanks for coming on the line. I hope you have a wonderful week. This is Neil Palache, Women's Money Coach with the Wealth Creator Company for Women. Please go to Neil's Deals, NEILZ, DEALZ, and register for special deals that we put up there every week and email you every week and so forth. And if there's anything else I can do for you, please feel free to give me a shout. Have a wonderful week. Neil Palache, signing off. Thanks.